Well, Hillary Clinton's camp wasted no time releasing this spot about Trump's taxes.
We have 3 pages, which gives us a lot of information.
He's selling himself as a brilliant businessman.
I'm really a good businessman. I'm so good at business. Oh.
This guy lost almost $1 billion in 1 year.
That doesn't sound particularly brilliant to me.
How do you lose $915 million in a rising real estate market if you're the great real estate genius?
Donald Trump could have avoided paying a dime of federal income taxes for 18 years.
Well, taxes aren't the only thing Trump has to worry about. This one, an issue maybe closer to home. New York State's Attorney General, well, Mr. Schneiderman just given a cease and desist order to the Trump Foundation saying it has to stop fundraising immediately, as in fact it is not registered to do that in New York. All right. Lots to unpack here. Let's bring in our panel. Jeannie Zanos is a professor of political science at Iona College, also a senior advisor at the consulting firm. Help me out. Applied Techonomics. Thank you very much.
I'm going to get you to say this correctly, Richard.
I'll do it one time. Applied Techonomics. Dominic Carter here, political journalist and author, easier to say. Mike Morey, managing director at SKD Knickerbocker. All right, Mike, even if he doesn't release the returns, and even if we don't get a lot of the questions answered, it proves one thing. He ain't a rocket scientist in that if his major qualification and his principal argument is I'm a businessman, at the end of the day I do deals, I make money. This is as abject failure as you can hear, and I can unpack more of it, which is when you look at what happened when he was in the height of this, they basically put him on an allowance. While he wasn't paying any taxes, he had $500,000 still a year to do while the creditors were basically managing him, that he could still do the private jets and everything else. For him to be relatable to the American man and still be the businessman, I think that went out the window.
It does to a degree. So, interestingly, if this weren't true, I would hope he would have released his taxes by now to swat it down, but he's not. So the chances are that it's true. But I don't know.
And one of his accountants just who was
the taxes,
filing it, he's acknowledged.
No, they've ignored. Yeah. But you can't acknowledge. We don't have any evidence yet for sure that he actually decided not to pay taxes for 18 years. But chances are he didn't. Otherwise, he'd say he did. But that being said, I think that's going to hurt him slightly. I don't think it's going to hurt him a huge deal, because the folks who like Donald Trump don't care whether he tells the truth. They really don't care whether he's been a good businessman or a bad businessman. They like the fact that the guy is just shaking things up and says whatever he wants.
But the person out there who doesn't like Hillary, they don't know who they like, but they said, maybe we rattle the cage a little bit and go from somebody outside the box. And I don't like a lot of what he says about different ethnic groups or whatever, but I like that he's a successful businessman. I've heard some of those people make those arguments to me. This was like a right, a left, and an uppercut to that argument.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying it's not going to hurt him, but it's not going to. There's going to be no bottom out here. He's going to maybe Hillary gain another 2-3 points. She's up 5 now. I guess CNN came out this afternoon. She's up 5, 7-point swing since the debate. That was before this story really came out. Maybe another 2 points. At the end of the day, I think I said this months ago. I think at the end of the day, she'll win by 8 or 9 points. I don't think this is going to kill Donald Trump. I think it's just another sort of drip. It's another point in his inability to turn around the debate. I think it hurts. I don't think it kills him.
Do you think what hurts him more in terms of the upcoming debate, the questions he's going to have to answer is, are you a bad businessman or are you a tax cheat or a tax dodger? Even if he says it wasn't illegal what I did, you ask anybody in this country, who do you know that doesn't pay taxes for 20 years? They'll be like, I don't know, but they don't live on my block.
I think he can answer the questions about the paying of the taxes by saying, look, this is the system we have. As you mentioned, he did nothing, apparently, as far as we know now, illegal. So we have a tax system flawed enough that somebody as wealthy as he is, apparently, can go potentially 18 years without paying taxes. And so I think he could try to spin that and use it, not to his advantage, but to kind of mitigate some of the losses. So I think the issue of being a bad businessman may hurt him, slightly. I agree with Mike. I don't think it's going to kill him. I think what does hurt him more are the shenanigans he pulled over the weekend about Hillary Clinton cheating on Bill Clinton. You know, it's this issue of temperament. You know, people know what he's like as a businessman. They know the issue of wealthy people with taxes. But what they can't wrap their heads around, even his supporters or people who want to support him, is can we trust this guy when the going gets tough to have the temper to do this? And he keeps showing
And
he
I want to
can't.
get into those comments that he said about Hillary fidelity and some of the other things he said over the weekend. It's preview certainly to what I think we'll see in the second debate. But Dominic, the people who came out to his defense, and you've been talking about this, but Chris Christie, we'll talk about New Jersey later on. It keeps going from bad to worser, even though that's not a word here. But him basically saying he's a genius. This is a really, really good story for Donald Trump.
Right.
To that I say I have a bridge. But listen to what Rudy Giuliani, and I don't know what is going on in this guy's head.
I already told you. It's time for Rudy to retire. You think I'm joking?
But
I'm not
beyond
joking.
retire,
I'm serious.
He said the following about this in the ABC interview. In fact, in there he says, don't you think a man, listen, Gina, this one, don't you think a man who has this kind of economic genius is a lot better for the United States than a woman? And the only thing that she's ever produced is a lot of work for the FBI and checking out the emails. Are they trying to pour dirt on the campaign? These two guys are his main surrogates, and every headline attached to him, let alone what Rudy said at the Waldorf, making jokes about the kitchen staff in the back here with the immigrants and everything else. I just don't understand any of the logic, campaign 101 logic. It's like they're doing everything in an inverse here. I don't know who this is appealing to.
Is this the same Rudy Giuliani that would have his media person, his U.S. attorney, call the press and say, I'm going to walk in at 4:45, cuff them and walk them out so you can take the shot live on camera, and then the person, after they lost everything in their family, the case they would win on appeal? Is it that Rudy Giuliani you're talking about? Or is it the Giuliani that wanted his mistress to move into City Hall and condemns everybody else? But for him, I just want to know which Giuliani you're talking about, because it's disgusting. The sad part is, I agree with what's been said. It's not going to hurt Trump with his base. They love this stuff, this garbage.
But the base isn't enough. We know the math the way it is right now, that he needs more. And it seems, and again, these polls are little snapshots, I know, but we're getting closer, Mike, right? And it does seem that Johnson's number seems to have capped out here.
And shrunk it slightly.
Right, and shrunk slightly. And the same thing also with Stein. And every time he says something, he makes Governor Perry look like a rocket scientist. But nonetheless, if this could even get worse for Trump, you see the litany of commercials where he says, those hedge funds guys, they don't pay anything in taxes. We've got to close the loopholes here. They're screwing the little guy. And he goes 20 years. I know your point that it doesn't matter if literally Randy streaked across the stage here and took somebody's money while he's doing it. They're still going to vote for him 40%. But he needs more than that.
Sure. I mean, so two things. One, we're assuming that they're operating with any sense of rationality inside that campaign.
They seemed to be for a while, didn't
they? Look, it usually happens for about 5 days after some shakeup that some folks come in. Kelly came in, tried to sort of right the ship, had 5 days of trying to do that. And then the natural instincts of everyone in that operation just come to fore. It's just not an operation. It's just a total and utter chaos inside.
You've never seen anything this bad, right?
This is insanity. This isn't a campaign. On the question, though, of sort of the issue of, like, is he genius because he's figured out how to use the tax loopholes? And, okay, so no, he didn't do anything illegal. He sort of used the rigged system he talks about to his benefit. Now, I would flip that on its head and say, if a member of Donald Trump's latest political party or Giuliani's party or Christie's party sat across the table and said to me, it's not a bad thing that a welfare queen had another baby. She's just using the system. It's not illegal. I mean, that is exactly the same thing in essence. It's just a flip. So you can't sit here and say, on the one hand, that when you game the system for taking a societal benefit, but if you game the system in order for your own wealth, that somehow makes you genius. Well, then Ronald Reagan's welfare queen was a genius.
And again, for me, you don't have to follow this genie to do the commercial where you stiffed a lot of people when those casinos went belly up. You totally left contractors hanging high and dry. While you were put on a $500,000 annual stipend by the creditors here, and you didn't pay taxes for 20 years. The analogy I did, you have a producer who works on a show. She or he has to pay taxes on what they make. Because you lost so much in a year, you're keeping that income without paying a penny in income taxes, and you're living high on the hog. Whether it's legal or not, the relevancy or the relatability to the average American here, you could be a kid, a freshman in media class. You can come up with these commercials.
The fact that Hillary's not saying, so 20 years, Donald Trump didn't pay a veteran's benefit, didn't pay a senior benefit, didn't pay an education benefit.
Well, I think what we may hear, to your point and to Mike's point, is in the next debate, I would not be surprised if they pulled a Machado on him again, but this time taking an example of somebody who was stiffed, as you said, and said, here's Joe Smith, and look what you've done to him. And next thing you know, Joe Smith is all over the TV. So I think that kind of personalization of the issue may move people a little bit more, or move the needle a little bit more on this. But let's not forget, in the debate before this even came up, Donald Trump stood up and said, I am so smart because I didn't pay any taxes. You should applaud me because, I've gamed the system.
Nobody thought for 20 years, Jeannie.
But he has been telling us this right along, so I don't think we can be surprised by any of this.
I didn't trust him on that one. Anyway, okay. Well, Jeannie hit on it, and on the other side of the break here, it's not just the taxes. What Donald Trump has been saying here, especially since the story came out to change the subject, make some of the crazy stuff from before look tame here, about Hillary, about where he's going to go about Bill, and everything in between. Plus, we've got Alec Baldwin's impression of the Donald. I thought it was a pretty good one. We'll get into that one too. Stay with us.